on the one hand,
Whee! It's a lot of wee.
I feel like I could die at any second.
So here's something interesting about this.
That's so
Isn't that wild?
We are always talking about how there are fewer and fewer affordable sports cars on the market every single year. Well, what if I told you that there is a vehicle you can buy brand new that has 200 horsepower, weighs under 1,700 pounds, has a manual gearbox, an open top, and costs under $35,000? Well, it's true, there is, but there's a catch.
It's missing a wheel.
This is the 2023 Polaris Slingshot R. And you might be asking yourself, why are we doing this? Why are we filming this vehicle? Well, on top of what we already mentioned, it is actually an affordable sports car experience.
True.
I told them I would. And what I mean by that is when I drove the first one in 2015 or 2016, I didn't love it. I thought it felt a lot like Polaris's UTVs, but on the road. The steering wasn't good, the engine wasn't good, it wasn't engaging. And I met someone at Polaris, an engineer, who worked on the re-engineering of the Slingshot that happened in 2020. In 2020, they changed this thing, so it now has 70% new parts.
Including the engine. The engine is their manufactured engines built by Polaris. It used to be built by GM. It was an Ecotech, and now it's theirs.
Right, and so now it has 203 horsepower and 144 pounds of torque. So that's 30 more horsepower, but it's actually 22 less torque than the GM motor. But because this thing only weighs 1,640 pounds with the manual gearbox, which we have, the torque loss is easily offset by the increase in horsepower.
Yeah.
And perhaps more importantly, it revs to 8,500 RPM.
I've never met an Ecotech that revved to 8,000 RPM.
Right.
Yeah.
So much more sporting, right? They also re-engineered the steering. It's a much quicker ratio. They re-engineered the suspension. It now has Brembo brakes. It has a more car-like interior with cup holders, a center console, a place to put your phone, USB ports, GPS, and all that kind of stuff. And it has different drive modes. So we'll put it in comfort, and now we'll put it back into slingshot mode. I said I would have a go, a good faith go. And I mean it. We're going to evaluate the dynamics of this vehicle and put it into context in a good faith way, regardless of how you think it looks or how you think it makes you look when you're driving it.
Right.
Disclaimer, we promised Polaris that we would only operate this vehicle wearing full face helmets, but that doesn't really work so well for video.
Right.
So we are living very dangerously right now with open face helmets so that you can see us talk. Okay? Here we go. Folks, traffic enforcement is a real thing, and in some ways it is totally unavoidable, but that doesn't mean it's not beatable. Our friends at Off the Record should be your first call if you get pulled over. There is an entire economic ecosystem based on traffic fines, court fees, insurance adjustments because you got a ticket, and all of that economic ecosystem is set up against you. Fight back. By pleading guilty, you're diving right in and you've automatically lost. Don't plead guilty. Our friends at Off the Record will set you up with a qualified attorney with an excellent track record almost anywhere in the country. Cover 97% of drivers in America that will help fight for you. Even if it's a charge that requires a court appearance, you don't have to go. They will go on your behalf. Meaning if you get a ticket in a state you don't live in, you don't have to travel back there to go to court. They'll do it for you. So go to offtherecord.com/TST or download the Off the Record app and use code TST10 in the Off the Record app. We're giving you 10% off all legal services booked through Off the Record until 2024. So download the app now, have it in your pocket, have it on your phone. That way, if you get pulled over, you're not panicking. You know you have an advocate on your side that's going to help get those points off of your record and help you exit from this economic ecosystem when you were just trying to get to work or have a good time. Off the Record is the official ticket fighting partner of The Smoking Tire. Hit the link in the description and get it on your phone now.
Now on the one hand,
Whee! It's a lot of wee. You are as exposed, more exposed than any convertible I've been in.
yes,
Almost like a motorcycle, but I was not quite.
as soon as I got in this, I noticed the changes that they made. The engine, while it's not exactly a Civic Type R engine, it's rev happy, right? It goes way, way up. The steering ratio is really quick.
Yeah, it's 2.5 turns, lock to lock.
Yeah, it's really direct. You never have to input more than 90 degrees of steering. The shifter feel pretty decent.
Yeah,
It's direct. The pedals are well laid out for heel and toe. The clutch pedal is very easy, and in fact, you can take off from the dig without adding any throttle at all.
when I got in my car yesterday after driving this for 3 hours, I was like, what's wrong with my clutch?
Right.
Why is it so heavy?
Even though it has Brembo brakes, it only has 3 Brembo brakes. And so what I've actually found is, despite the low weight of the vehicle, I've been able to get these brakes pretty hot on a fast downhill run. And I don't think they really have the stopping power that the name Brembo implies they might.
No, I drove this car on this road yesterday, and both, even on uphill, I was like, am I not pressing it hard enough? Are the brakes manual? And I went all the way to the floor in a straight line to test the panic braking, and it just straight up under brake. So I don't know if it needs new pads or high performance pads. I mean, yes, it only has 3 brakes, but it only has 3 wheels. But they're 300 millimeters. These rotors are the same size as the ones you get on an S2000.
Right.
But it does not stop as quickly as it accelerates.
Right, and there could be other factors at play. I asked the GM performance guys about this yesterday. The rotors could be thinner, right? Or possibly it could have cheap, everyday fluid in them.
Right?
Or the pads could just be a street optimized, dust-free pad.
Or if it has really soft rubber lines, they could flex or something.
Right.
But basically, for having Brembos in a vehicle that's so quick, 0 to 60 in 4.5, but it feels really quicker than that.
Right.
I was a little disappointed in the brakes.
It does feel quick. It is quick. The power to weight. I mean, whatever the number says, sitting here, it feels quick.
Yeah. And the top speed is limited to 125, which I think, 1, is a good idea.
Yeah.
And 2, is far below what it would do, because 3rd goes to like 90 something. And there's 2 gears left after that.
Whoa. Okay.
Famous bump.
So, as you might imagine, there are a couple of downsides to having only 3 wheels.
What a manufacturer won't tell you, but what I'll tell you, is that there's only one reason to build a 3-wheeled vehicle at all. Dynamically, it's not better than a 4-wheeled vehicle in any way. In fact, it's pretty measurably worse. But a 3-wheeled vehicle is not a car. It's an auto cycle, and therefore it doesn't have to meet modern safety regulations. It doesn't have to pass a crash test. It doesn't need airbags or crumple zones or doors. for instance. And yes, there's the Ultra Low Volume Manufacturer Act that would allow companies like Polaris, Morgan, and Can-Am to build four-wheeled vehicles that were exempt from those standards. They're limited in numbers, so you could only build so many vehicles. They want to sell a lot of these. So three-wheeled is the way.
Dynamically, you have just over half the rear grip you probably should have.
Right.
Which means getting the power down is a challenge. It also means the back gets pretty light under braking. And of course, when you have crowning in the road, the back becomes a little unstable.
Well, the other thing is when you're in a corner and you get some lean in the front, because we have wonderful double wishbones up front. Front suspension is nice, but when you're in a corner and that leans, the back can't lean.
Right.
It's more static. So I don't know if it actually compresses or not, but it can't lean on one wheel the way a normal car can.
Right.
So it's kind of fixed.
Right, and it's weird to have all this power going to the rear wheels and having so much control over the front wheels and so little control over the back.
Yeah.
You know what else they added? Heated and cooled seats.
Amazing. So
Okay,
when they're off, you have both lights
Both
on.
lights on.
And then when you tap it, it actually vibrates too.
Yeah, haptic.
Which is very cool if it's, if you can't see very well, or I don't know, if you're driving in the rain, God forbid.
But when you're parking this thing outside in the sun, these seats get hot.
Oh yeah.
The cooled seats are very helpful.
And if you were driving in 45-degree weather and you're wearing all your rain gear or whatever, you're gonna want those heated seats.
Yeah.
Okay. Shifter is very nice.
Did you get traction control at the top of second there?
Did I?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, peak torque's at 65.
Oh yeah.
And when I drove this yesterday, it would just roll on and just light up the tire. So from third, the thing is, there's still so much power even below that peak torque line. It's really quick. So here's something interesting about this. This car is 6 inches wider than a 992 GT3.
No way.
And the front track width is 6 inches wider than a GT3's track width.
That's so
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
I mean, this has a front end that is almost suited for cup racing. That's why the front feels so nice.
Yeah. No, the front end is actually awesome.
It's great, yeah.
Like, it turns in so sharp.
It's like a Lotus.
Yeah.
It's like the Lotus, and it's not too stiffly sprung. And the steering is electronic power assist. When you go from comfort to slingshot, it firms up the steering a little bit. And it's actually variable ratio, so I think it gets a little quicker. It's so wild to me though, like the front is so like quick and agile and just moves around, but then I just don't feel comfortable with the back.
No, it's a mess.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as good as it could be with three wheels,
Right.
but like, what do you do?
Credit to the Polaris engineers for re-engineering this thing, because a lot of it is really good. This shifter is close to how Hondas feel. Like it's somewhere between VW and Honda. It's like really accurate. I like the way, the crispness of it, the solidity, but it also, you can shift quickly. It's not like Corvettes, you gotta kind of like crunch.
No, it's more Miata. In fact, it may actually be a Miata gearbox.
It feels a lot like a Miata. God, third, gets up there in the miles per hour.
I feel like I could die at any second.
Dude, a van came around the corner yesterday over the yellow line, and I watched my life flash before my eyes.
A helmet feels performative. Like I need full leather.
I feel all of the imperfections of the road coming through like the back and the butt of the seat.
What would happen? What do you think would happen if you put like Öhlins on this?
I have no idea. If someone out there is an engineer, put in the comments, what does one swing arm do in the back? Because in a motorcycle, the motorcycle leans.
Yeah.
But we don't have that.
It is a unique motoring experience, right? And that is what, we all are kind of seeking. So if you wanted something super light, engaging, fast, and you don't really care if it looks kind of silly or if it's compromised in an interesting way, it's not a terrible option, honestly.
Yeah, it's not.
You just gotta know what you're getting into.
Yeah. And out of the three, you know, there's this, the Morgan three-wheeler, and the Vanderhall. Vanderhall is a little smaller than this, makes a lot more torque,
But it's
more
front-wheel
expensive.
drive.
Yeah.
That's no bueno.
And the weight bias, I drove one years ago, maybe they've changed it, but the weight balance was terrifying.
Yeah, I drove one too, and it was awful.
And then the Morgan, very cool looking, also goes to 130 miles an hour, which is wild, but it starts at like 55 grand, gets more expensive, and the Morgan is more of like an appearance piece.
Yeah,
It's like art.
And we haven't driven the new one, the Super 3. You know, the one I loved had a motorcycle engine, sounded like World War II aircraft. But now they've put a car engine in it. So my question about that, and I know we're going to drive one sooner rather than later, but the question with that is, has making it better made it worse?
To compare these two, the Morgan has such tiny tires.
Yeah.
So this is going to be the,
Oh, you ready?
this will handle better.
Hey.
The Morgan's more of an experience, and the Vanderhall's like a cruiser.
You know what this is really good at? Pulling into driveways.
Yeah, it is.
When you pull hard into a driveway, the fact that you don't have a true inside right tire, it actually is like good.
The only other complaint I had about this, I forgot on the drive, is that the throttle mapping, there's a point like half an inch in where you tip and it adds more throttle to the engine than I've added with my foot. It's like a jump, and that was just a little bit weird because it's an electronic throttle. It's the only programming problem that I really found.
But compared to the first one, this is way better. I mean, it's actually, we've discussed the ways in which it is kind of sketchy, but it is actually fun to wheel around in its own way.
Yeah.
And considering how many fewer affordable sports cars there are in the market now, and that's not really going to change anytime soon, any option is a good option.
What's hard for me is you can get a Miata that starts, like a Miata Club starts at 31.
Sure.
Now, if you get the Recaros and the good brakes on it, you're at 37, which is a few grand more than this. But that's a convertible. It's got similar horsepower, almost the same transmission. Is it different? Yes. Is there a negative connotation some people have with Miatas because they're stupid? Yes.
It's not, the word they would use isn't stupid.
It's
not that word.
It's not that word.
The people, look, I've been driving this thing around for a week and a half now. The other people who are driving this, I assure you, would never be seen in a Miata.
I agree.
And also those same people, just by how they present themselves when driving this type of thing. T-shirt, tight T-shirt, real tough guy attitude.
It's a very extroverted vehicle.
Right.
And yeah.
A used F-Type or a used Corvette is out of the question. A used Boxster is out of the question. Things that are better cars, that are built better, that are safer, you know what I mean? That are probably even better to drive, but are not as flash, are out of the question for this kind of customer. And I don't know what other people are thinking when they're looking at me driving this, but I know what I'm thinking when I'm looking at someone else driving one, and it ain't good.
But I think that's the subjective thing, right?
Sure,
this is, like if you were a kid, this looks like a transformer that attached itself to a motorcycle. I mean, it is cool and exciting, and it is different. And they did a great job with the engineering of it all. But so I guess,
That's to circle back to where we started. The Polaris engineers said, we want you to have another go because we re-engineered it and did the best we could with the platform, and we want to know what you think. And I think the guy wasn't lying. I think the guy really did a great job engineering within the constraints of this platform. So, rent one for a day from somebody and try it out, and you probably will have a good time. I wouldn't buy one. You wouldn't buy one. But somebody will, and the people who do are going to enjoy it more than the people who bought the old one.
Very true.
So, thanks to Polaris for letting us have another go. I hope that is as good faith as we can be about this vehicle. And thanks to you guys for watching, and we'll see you later.
And remember, always fight your tickets. Use code TST10 on the Off the Record app available in the Android and iOS store, or go to offtherecord.com/TST.